Think about this for a second. If you want something built right, build it with Advyzon. That is a bold statement, yet it's true. You think about all the capabilities that we offer: performance reporting and billing, CRM, SEC compliant document storage, prospect portals, client portals, Nucleus, model marketplace, UMA, on and on. We already know that we're the best all-in-one platform out there. But what if the build side from unique, disparate firms could be accomplished through Advyzon? And that's why we're here today. So everybody, welcome back. Like I said, I wanted to cast a wide net when it came to the types of firms that we could service. So Amit Oger represents True Independence. True is on a rocket ship path as an aggregator. Over his leadership over the last 2 years, it has been taken off like a rocket, like I said. Martin from Nebo, if you haven't seen their optimizer, the risk optimizer, or talked to them, they're prominently placed throughout here. They're next generation investment firms, and under his leadership, they're gonna crush it. Kat Davies with Innovate, custody, clearing. Under her leadership in the custody and clearing space, you're gonna be hearing a ton about them within the next year and many years to come. And then Jason Barber. Jason is an upstart aggregator. He is third generation. Think about that one for a second. His grandfather, his father, him personally. He made the decision personally to break away and do what every single person in this room did. And he wanted to take that knowledge, he wanted to take that expertise and provide an aggregation platform for others to utilize and use. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go down, each respective panelist on the dais is gonna tell their story, they're gonna tell their firm's story, why they're unique in the marketplace. Then we're gonna get into a technology discussion. And that technology discussion is really gonna encompass maybe where we were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, where we're at now, and where we're going in the future. And then we're gonna get into the why Advyzon. Each and every single person up here figured if you want it built right, build it with Advyzon. So why don't I start? Amit, you want to please start us off, give an intro, and then certainly get into True, and we could go from there.
Right. So thank you, Lee, sure. And thank you to the Advyzon leadership for a great conference. I'm sure everyone will agree that it's been a great time together, and I appreciate you asking me to be here today. So again, my name is Amit Oger. I'm the President, Chief Innovation Officer at True Independence. We are a national advisory platform that works with advisors across the country and roughly $12.5 billion of assets under management. We have grown to work with advisors who want their own form of independence. And independence can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. Our version of independence is flavored in 2 ways. Number one, it's your own ADV. So you're on your own RIA. We support you with a battery of services from a front office, middle office, back office perspective. And we also work with you in a corporate ADV perspective. So if you'd like to have a little bit more guardrails on, we work in that 1099 variety as well. True has grown rapidly. In the past 2 years, we went from $8 billion to $12.5 billion. We're looking to add about another $6 billion this year, outside hopes of getting to $20 billion with our partnership with Advyzon driving that. The story, that we like to tell for advisors is, it's not about True, it's about you. And if you look on the board there, it's probably the one thing I would have asked to correct is that the T in True is not capitalized in our logo.
Apologies.
We'll work on that for next year. And that's intentional. Our founder, Craig Stuvlin, was very intentional at the time when we launched True just about 10 years ago to not make it be a larger-than-life organization with our brand in the front, much more about it being the advisor for it brand front and our brand in the background. And that's why the capital T, it's a lowercase t, not a capital T, because it's not about True, it's about all of you. And it starts with how we market and brand ourselves, which isn't in a forward way, it's through our advisors and our advisor partnerships. So we set out to create a platform that was different, built around this concept of innovation. And True was one of the first firms in the industry to move away from a fee model, where as a platform provider, we charge basis points on AUM. It was Craig's mission to be much more aligned with advisors. So instead of charging basis points on AUM, it's a fee for a percentage of revenue. And the answer is quite simple. If you're an advisor and you take on an accommodation account, whether that's 1 million or 10 million, and you do it as a family accommodation, I like to say it's highly appreciated, low-cost basis stock where you're not doing any management, you may not charge anything. But that's 10 million of AUM. So if you're in a basis point model, you're getting charged for that even if the client's not. And so Craig said we want to be aligned with the advisor. So if you're not making money, we're not making money. When you make more money, we actually make less money is how we've postured it and positioned it, because we want to make sure that you recognize it's, again, all about true, or all about you, not about true. And this history of innovation has brought us to our partnership with Advyzon 2 years ago, where it was this constant drumbeat from our advisors around there has to be something more and something better. At our first inaugural conference, which Lee was kind enough to attend, there was a sense of growing frustration around things around service excellence, service experience. How can we, and the advisors were looking to us. And when it comes to technology, I think we can all agree there's two universal truths. One, it's expensive. Two, it's ever evolving. So you can either build it, you can borrow it, or you can buy it. We set out on the path to quickly realize that partnership was the way to go. And we were looking at around underscoring the experience that we provided and being of service excellence. And that excellence had to go ahead and transcend everything we do from a human talent perspective to a relational perspective to a fintech perspective. And so out of that was born an experience as a service concept that we deliver to advisors. And Advyzon, with our private label version, which we call TrueView, is now the delivery mechanism for that. We still work with other competitors, but there is no doubt that the fastest growing part of True is our partnership with Advyzon. And it's the reason why we have beaten our competitors in the marketplace, because it gives us a unique advantage and the ability to deliver and execute on our mantra of experience as a service.
Thank you, Amit. Martin?
Thanks, Lee, and thanks for inviting me on the panel, and it's an honor to be here. In the spirit of storytelling, perhaps I'll start with our origin story. It really started back in 2013, so more than a decade ago. I work at a large institutional asset management firm, and the head of asset allocation one day came down to my office. I wasn't even working in asset allocation, but I'd been doing a lot more work asset allocation related. And I'd gotten to know the head of asset allocation very well. He came down to my office one day and said, I just got off an interesting call with one of our large corporate clients, and they're doing more and more work in the defined contribution space. They want to know if we have any thoughts on glide paths. So maybe you want to look into glide paths. So I started looking into glide paths, and the first question I had was, how are they being built? So I researched all the large glide path purveyors, and none of them were really explaining what they were doing. So we went back to first principles, and we asked a very simple question. And that question is, what is the risk that the asset owner faces? And it was very intuitive to us that that risk is they don't have the money they need when they need it. Risk is not volatility, it's they don't have what they need when they need it. Why don't we build portfolios to minimize that risk? And that's how the whole process started. We wrote a white paper in April of 2014, and we knew we'd struck a nerve because it was one of the most downloaded white papers on advisor perspectives that year. It was picked up by the Wall Street Journal, and we were interviewed, et cetera. But all good stories are not straight up. So for about the next 4 or 5 years, we really had to do a couple of things. First was we had to flesh out a framework. Essentially what we're trying to do is replace modern portfolio theory as a bedrock of how people think about finance and investments, and that's not an easy task. But more importantly, from a commercialization perspective, we were, and still are, embedded in an institutional asset management firm, and so we were looking to commercialize this idea in the institutional space. And it took us an embarrassingly long time to realize that the institutions in the retirement space are not early adopters. And it wasn't until about 2019 that we realized that it was really the advisory space that were likely to contain the early adopters, where our ideas were actually going to resonate. So why does this matter, and why is it resonating with financial advisors? So there's a couple of reasons. At a very high level, there are two mega trends that advisors are experiencing. One is a push for personalization, and we see this sort of economy-wide. No matter what you purchase, no matter what services or goods you buy, you expect personalization, and the same is true in the advisory space. At the same time, advisory firms and advisors want to scale their businesses. They want to increase their margins, and they want to increase the size of their business. Right now, before NEBO, those two things are incompatible. If you want to personalize, you're generally either stuck in spreadsheet misery, or worse, stuck in spreadsheet hell. If you want to scale your business, generally you're drawn to model portfolios. And model portfolios really don't enable you to personalize the portfolio for the client. What NEBO allows you to do is actually get both personalization and scale without compromising either one. But there's a deeper layer to this, and the deeper layer ties to why is there this trade-off between personalization and scale. And the reason that there's a trade-off is because we actually discovered, this was through observation and interaction and engagement with advisors, that there's a gap between what advisors are doing on the planning side and what they're doing on the asset management side. And one of the ways that that manifests is we've asked hundreds of advisors the following question: do you struggle aligning your client's financial plan with the actual portfolio that they're in? And 58% say they struggle. Struggle is a really strong word. And the way that manifests back to us is advisors that are using NEBO, they come back to us and they tell us the incredible emotional responses that they have, the increased confidence bordering on relief. It's a little bit weird for me to say what I'm going to say next, because you may not believe it, but they'll come back to us and they'll say words like, NEBO is magical. I had a come to NEBO moment. And we think this is a manifestation of the struggle that is being relieved by the adoption of NEBO. It's giving them understanding and confidence that they're aligning the client's goals and objectives with the portfolios that they're actually putting them in. This is a problem that's hidden in plain sight. This gap between the plan and portfolio. Asset allocation is an often overlooked component of the investment management process. It is arguably the most important component, and that's effectively at the core what NEBO is solving for. Personalized asset allocation for each client based on their wants, needs, and circumstances. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Awesome. For everybody's edification, Martin has his PhD in physics too. So when we locked Martin in high linen in a room and put a camera on him, it was absolute chaos. Kat, please go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. And by the way, I don't know what it is about chairs on a stage, but they're never comfortable. So I too am going to wait for it. I don't know what that is.
Please.
So why are we here, or why am I here? I'd like the front couple rows to turn around and look behind you. This is the end of a conference, you guys. This is impressive. I mean, I don't think I've seen that in a long time. But the answer, in short, the story, it's because of all of you. I've been in this industry 27 years, somewhere around that. I'm 50, happy 50-year-old, I'm still here. But the gist of it is, I got into this business because I like people. And I was good at it, and spent a ton of time at Schwab and Fidelity, and spent some time on your side of the table. Got my CFP, did all of these things, but the reality is what it got me into this is truly just people. Now, the gift of having that many years in this space, and the gift of actually being able to be connected to all of the people here, is you learn a ton about how to do things right and how to do things wrong. There's a gift of that 27 years, and that's a lot of what we're doing. So there's really three things that you need to know about Innovate. The first is that we're new. Well, it's sort of a restart, but the gist of it is that we have a couple companies that we are building together, and we are starting off with today's technology. We're starting off with a backbone of technology that actually has the ability to keep the data available and ready to be used. We are building out a data lake. I know that sounds like technology geekishness, but the reality is it's what needs to happen today. It's what needs to be clean data and be able to have it be mined so that you guys can get the reports and everything that you need. The other thing that we're doing is we're unabashedly going after Generation 2. Generation 2 and Generation 3. We all know about the succession that is going on in the next 5 years. I remember when it was 15 years. I remember when we sat down and talked about what are we going to do and how are we going to handle this. Focus was brilliant. They went out and started creating documents that allowed their advisors to actually pick their next successor. But that was 15 years ago. We're now at about 5, and maybe even less. And with that and the wealth transfer that's actually happening to Generation X and to millennials, we're right smack dab in the space where we need to be to really service those types of clients and advisors in that space. Last but not least, I've heard this so much in this conference. We were just down at the custodial roundtable, or I guess panel discussion, and the unwavering statement that is out there is that we've gotten away from people. We've gotten away from service. We've gotten away from what it is to pick up the phone and actually talk to somebody when something goes wrong. So we're actually hiring people that have been in this industry for a very long time to make sure that when you do call, you're talking to somebody who's been in your seat, who knows what you're doing, and you don't have to explain it to them. That's one of those things in that area that it's unprecedented from the standpoint of typically we go out as custodians and we hire the kid out of college, right? The one that we don't have to pay as much. And then all of you spend a ton of time educating and training that employee for us. We're not going to do that. We want to make sure that when you call, you get somebody who knows what you're talking about. So you combine all of those things, and that's Innovate. People say this all the time, but it really is true. We're going to meet you where you are. We want to. We've been in this industry a long time. The majority of the people that are working with me have been in 25, 30 plus years. I know a ton of people on the stage already, and many of you do as well. So that's the difference. And the gift of that is what we're bringing to the table as of March 4th, which I'm excited about.
Thank you, Kat. Jason?
Well, I just want to say thanks again for having me, Lee, and the Advyzon folks here. It's such an honor to be here and to share our story. And so I'll just kind of get started and try to be as brief as I can. So I come from a long, long line of financial advisors. I am a third generation, or was up until about 11 and a half months ago, a third generation Edward Jones financial advisor. I've got a picture in my office that I drew when I was 6 years old that says, when I grow up, I want to be a stockbroker. Literally, and so my grandfather started the very first Edward Jones office in my small town of Nacogdoches, Texas, which is the oldest town in Texas, pretty small town. And back in 1981, it was his second career. He grew up on a farm in Kansas and had a long career in the Air Force. And then when he retired as a colonel in the Air Force, he moved from Kansas and just randomly found himself in Nacogdoches, Texas, and started an office. And back then, if you wanted to buy stocks, you were calling 1-800 Wall Street, right? And so we like to kind of say that he plowed new ground in Nacogdoches when he launched that Edward Jones business. And over the years, my whole family, my grandmother worked in the business, my aunt, my dad, my cousin, myself. It's really truly been a family business that we built, and proud to say that when we left, the level of business that we were doing in, again, very small town, East Texas. There's about 20,000 Edward Jones advisors in America, and we were in the top 25 in terms of the total production that we were doing. So we really felt like we had built a very big business, but we felt like we had outgrown the business model, and not getting into the weeds, but there were a lot of cultural changes, and I think our family values just weren't in alignment with the firm's values any longer, and so we made the decision that we needed to make a change. But where I come from, independence for a lot of folks that are like me means going into the independent broker-dealer channel, right? Going to work for Ameriprise, going to work for Raymond James, going to work for LPL, and I just kind of always felt like that was just not an option for us, because I just figured, whatever I don't like about my current firm, I'm not going to like something else about the next firm, right? I don't want to work for somebody else. But interestingly enough, everyone in here might find this hard to believe, but up until probably a year before we broke away, I didn't even know what an RIA was. I didn't even, literally, it meant absolutely nothing to me. Didn't even know what it was. Independence equals Raymond James, Ameriprise, et cetera, was my thing. And it's a long story, and by the way, I'll plug our podcast. If you want to hear the whole story, we just launched a podcast called Behind the Breakaway that kind of goes into the whole details. So if you know an advisor that was looking to break away, well, you should tell them to go listen to our podcast, because I'll tell you the whole story. But we recruited, interestingly enough, my cousin, he actually worked for Raymond James Independent Broker-Dealer, and we brought him into the family business. He's probably the only advisor that ever went from independent Raymond James backwards to captive broker-dealer Edward Jones. But at the exact moment that he was leaving and coming back to work for us, the person that was running his independent broker-dealer Raymond James was going RIA and leaving Raymond James IBD. And so we took note of that. I think that was actually the very first time that I ever heard the letters RIA together. Like, what is that? Why is that guy doing that? There must be something more to that. And so that's when we kind of figured out, hey, this is really what we need to be doing, and took note of that and started to research that. And so we ultimately broke away about 11 and a half months ago, and we're proud to say I brought 90% of my business with me. And we named our firm, so I'm here representing Uptick Partners, which is our aggregation business, but the name of our RIA is Holistic Planning. And funny story behind that is we named it that because I found the domain name. So domain name was available. I bought the domain name, and I thought that's a great name, and so that's how we named it that. And I like to think of it as kind of like that's what we do. Holistic planning is a verb, and so we do that, and proud of what we're building there. And so the idea and the thesis behind Uptick Partners is that we're trying to build something that we looked at a lot of different. I'll be the first to admit, didn't ever talk to True Independence, and I probably should have. But looked at a lot of different aggregator support type platforms, and just felt like nobody. Well, I just mentioned a second ago that most Edward Jones people, when they leave, they don't go launch their own RIAs. They just don't, on average. Most, I'm sure there's been some, but most, and certainly large Edward Jones advisors on average don't do that. And so the folks that we met with and talked to, by and large, just felt like they didn't really relate to us. They didn't really understand what my technology stack looked like, what I was used to, the fact that I was non-protocol, the fact that I couldn't bring any data with us, the fact that I'm in this small town, and the second that I leave, all my clients are going to be split up and given to another person that goes to church with that person, right? And they're going to stab you in the back, and all the different things, and just didn't really fully understand the seriousness of this family business that we were putting it all on the line to do this. And so we just ultimately came to the conclusion that we needed to do it ourselves. And we feel like our unique kind of niche, if you want to call it, is that I've been there. I've done that. So when we help the next person break away from the captive broker-dealer environment to go to the full measure, fee-only RIA type model, I think that my story is unique in that, hey, if I could go back and do it again, there's almost no price that I wouldn't have been willing to pay to have somebody there with me on the day that I actually signed my resignation letter who's actually done it themselves. Not talked to other people who did it, not watched other people do it, but they're like, I've actually done it. I signed the resignation letter. I did it. I made the phone calls. I had the conversations, and there's just something about that. It's the scariest day of your entire life. And so if you can have somebody else be there with you who's actually done it, I just think it's priceless. And so that's our model.
And I think that speaks volumes about what's real, the real pain that advisors feel when they do make that break, right? It's It's something to behold when you say somebody who's actually done it before. I would love to transition right now into more of the technology, right? So technology 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and then why Advyzon? If Advyzon could build it, why did you choose us? Martin, why don't we start with you?
So the why Advyzon is really easy. We were introduced to Advyzon by Tim Welsh last year. And, I remember the first meeting really vividly, and we sort of outlined our vision. Advyzon outlined their vision. And what was really clear right in the beginning is how willing they were to listen to what we wanted to do and how flexible they were in accommodating that vision. It turns out, I think there's a lot of overlap, and they were really willing to sort of move around things that were on their product roadmap to accommodate us, and we're enormously grateful for that. I think at a higher level, there's a we share an entrepreneurial spirit and a mindset, and there's really no substitute for that. Like, you can't teach that, you can't buy that. It's either there or it's not. And I think the third thing is the high level of integrity. So we've, I think, established a tremendous relationship. It's been incredible to meet the team in person because almost everything up till now has just been on Zoom and WebEx and things of that nature. But it's an incredible partnership so far.
Thank you, appreciate that. Kat?
Yeah, I mean, I underscore that. I think all of us are here because of the incredible relationships that we've all built. It's funny, when I thought about that question 2 weeks ago, it was very different than it is today. Being here the last 2 days, listening to what they're building in Advyzon 3.0 just underscores exactly why it is.
Shout out Dirk.
Yeah, exactly why it is that we have chosen to partner with them. And first, to be completely honest, the product suite, the flexibility, the white labeling capabilities, the connection to all of you. And again, I keep seeing this, and we were talking about it earlier. It's impressive how many people are here, especially at the very end. And I think that that's a testament to not just Advyzon, but to all of you coming together and wanting to be a part of something that's great. So flexibility, technology, all of the intelligence that they bring to the table, what they're building on 3.0, we want to be a part of that. I can honestly say that we are building out an ability to be able to create the data that they're going to be able to pull and mine for you. I think it's going to be faster and more efficient than anything I even anticipated or planned on, or the team did. So I'm very excited to see where this is going to go.
Thank you, Kat. Jason?
Yeah, Lee, I think the best way I can say it, I just would echo everything that Martin said, about like-mindedness and just the entrepreneurial spirit. I can sense it. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And you can just tell when somebody thinks the same way that you do and responds the same way that you do and has integrity. And I just feel like all of the folks that I've dealt with at Advyzon really, truly have that. And I can't say that, I don't say that lightly. That really means something to me as an individual that, really has this family business, again, that we're putting on the line, and we care about that deeply, especially just kind of where I come from in East Texas. That integrity and honesty really means something, and the flexibility to be able to make something custom specifically for us was just very, very important. I'll tell a really quick story. So when we broke away, or when we decided that we were going to break away, the very first technology demo that I did, out of probably hundreds, was Advyzon. And I'm sad to say that over that whole process, we ended up just kind of getting that paralysis by analysis, and ended up, when we broke away, we went with a different vendor, sadly. And it was, to put it mildly, it was a horrible decision. It truly was. And it ended up costing me almost 6 figures of money, that kind of a bad of a decision. But it was so important that we made the right decision, that we said, hey, we've got to make a change here, and pivoted. And it truly was like night and day in terms of the service that we got, in terms of the experience that we had, the technology, all of the above was just incredible. And I'll say this last point, Lee, real quick, is that What's changed in the industry from my perspective technology-wise is that 5-10 years ago, before Advyzon, right, in the not too distant past, I think that we had to have these big broker-dealers. You know, from my perspective, you know, we had to have an Edward Jones, a Merrill Lynch, a Raymond James, whatever it may be, because the technology was just not there to do it on your own, generally speaking. I mean, it was there, but not like really enterprise-grade, high-quality technology, just wasn't there. And now it is, and we don't need those big corporations to support our independent businesses, and I thank God for Advyzon every day because of that. So,
Thank you. Amit?
You know, Lee, we've known each other a little over a decade, and when Lee first joined, if you don't know Lee well, I encourage you to get to know him, number one. But number two, there's two sides to Lee. There's a subtlety and that I think is really nice, and then there's an absolute directness. And so Lee's comment was to me when he first came on was very simple. Amit, you guys should work with us because we're going to make you look good. I'm like, well, okay, well that's a hard.
Took you long enough.
So obviously that caught my attention, and then you start looking at what Advyzon does and delivers, and it became so synonymous with what we wanted to do, which was making the complex simple. And that is one of our phrases that we like to share as well. You know, when we started to talk to advisors around sort of all the different things around whether you're a breakaway advisor, an existing advisor, making that complex technology world very simple was one of the things that we set out to do. And as we learn the Advyzon story, you know, there's two things. One, he says that I now steal, is, you know, we're trying to take the stack out of your technology solution, and that embedded single source code technology. I always tell people, you may think you have aligned technology or integrated technology, but what you at best have is aligned. And if you have to hit Alt-Tab on your keyboard to go between performance reporting and rebalancing and a CRM, then you do not have integrated technology. And that makes everybody sit up. And I said, that's what we're talking about here. And the team here at Advyzon has been very willing to work with us in regards to customizing what we're looking for. A lot of what we're looking for on our roadmap is already on their roadmap. So finding a partner who not only supports your vision, but is aligned in your vision really kind of puts you on the glide path to get to where you want to go quicker, faster, more effective, and efficiently. And I think it really has made for a great story for us around that. Because it really simplifies what an advisor is looking for. So you no longer have to learn what a CRM is. You got to put on a note, just put a note in. You want to go rebalance. And advisors get it. So you've helped us deliver on our promise.
Could you share the statistics from last year alone when you went up, I won't say the name, but when you went up against one of the biggest aggregators in the marketplace in regards to deals, what percentage you won with the build it with Advyzon mentality against them, juxtaposed against them, and kind of give some feedback there?
Yeah, in the history of the firm, I think our largest competitor has beaten us, I think, more times than we would like to admit. In the past 2 years in our partnership with Advyzon, and we call it TrueView, which, thank you, as Kat pointed out, the private labeling piece has been very powerful, and we talk about a partnership. As we've shared, that we've had them go to, whether it's a team of $100 million or $2 billion, they've met with their competitor first, and they're like, that's a high bar. Last year alone, I'm not the math guy, Lee, but 5 out of 6 times we went up against our largest competitor and won, and the one time we didn't is because we did not put cash in the deal. We had a high bar where they said, look, we're committed down this road. You guys are late to the game, but we've heard from strategic partners we should talk to you, so we are. And we said, great, we're not here to convince you. We're just here to articulate who we are, what we do, how we do it, and why advisors are picking True versus our competitors, and 5 out of 6 times we've won.
Appreciate that feedback. It's very unique. So when he talks about TrueView, think about the Advyzon platform and the build it side, right, why we're all here right now, and building out customizations to make it uniquely their platform. And that's the difference, is that we have this the capabilities that I was talking about before. How do we enhance those capabilities to specifically meet the needs of True? And that's what we've been delivering on since the beginning. Martin, I'd love to hear kind of your feedback in regards to the trading capabilities that we're bringing to the table on the asset management side, passing from your platform, which is robust and fantastic, into the Advyzon investment management platform. We do the trading, we do the rebalancing, we handle kind of all that heavy lifting on our side as well.
Yeah, so the backstory there is we've been working with advisors. Typically, we're at an early stage in our growth, so these advisors are typically early adopters and innovators. And I think what's really interesting about the sort of entrepreneurial thread of the discussion here is Bob Veras on his panel yesterday talked about the Advyzon users being sort of a unique breed. And I think they're in our experience in sort of meeting some of you over the last couple of days, we're seeing that sort of entrepreneurial spirit come through. So that ties back into Lee's question, because our platform is really the composite of engagements that we've had with advisors over the last 5 years. Every feature and capability is the consequence of a dialogue and an interaction and a request. One of the requests that we kept on getting is, can you give me the easy button? Can I go from financial plan all the way to portfolio, hit one button, and then get the target portfolios sent into the trading and rebalancing and have that done for me? And that's what we've done with Advyzon. So what NEBO does at its core is create a customized target portfolio for each individual client, but we don't do the trading and rebalancing on the NEBO platform. We're integrated now with the Advyzon system, and we send that via API with all of its complexities into Advyzon system, and then Advyzon basically takes it over from there.
Thank you.
It's a thing of beauty.
Thank you. Could you say that again? And Kat, I know that our deployment's really going to be around model marketplace and UMA, functionality for you there, and how best to monetize on the custody and clearing side. I know, for now, thank you. Could you say that again?
Sure, anytime.
But I think you're really driven by data. By the way, I will say this about Kat. I don't think there's anybody I've ever met who understands the business aspect to our industry better than her. So whenever I get 5 minutes, 10 minutes to pick her brain on this sort of stuff, I'm always fascinated by the dialogue and her expertise that comes back. But I think you're more fascinated on the Advyzon side with AI and certainly the data. How do you see that folding into the custody and clearing side of the business in regards to importance?
Yeah, so we are starting with just the portfolio management, but again, like I said, we're starting with Advyzon. The reason I'm obsessed with data and the reason I'm obsessed with API highways and all of the capabilities of modular technology is because as long as it's modular and it's moldable and it's changeable, you can always stay on the cutting edge. There is nothing that prevents an entrepreneur, as we've been talking about, from being on the cutting edge. It's really, really important to make sure we stay there. Now, the pandemic, whether we like it or not, brought us forward. It helped FINRA and the SEC decide that DocuSign was an okay thing to have. And while that was great, what it did and harmed us on was this idea of the fact that everybody in our large broker-dealers went almost a little too far. We took the people out of it. So the concept is that if you have data and you have this huge amount of capability to really mine it, to get to it, to have it free-flowing all the way through, and what NEBO does, which is impressive, you also have the ability to self-service, but also have the high touch, right? We call it low touch, high touch. But the combination of all of those things, you can't do that without the data, without the connectivity, without the layers, the modular technology allowing you to stay on that cutting edge. So when I was sitting here yesterday and watching the 3.0 and listening to everybody talk about it, I got very excited. And yes, I do get excited about data. But it's just what you can do with it and what you can do with it for your clients. It can help you run your business better. It can help you manage the portfolios better. It can actually help you transition from one technology to another easily and efficiently without too much trouble, which we experienced in the past. So very excited about the data.
Thank you, Kat. And I think Jason's deployment's unique is that you know, what he was looking to do is conversations with Edward Jones advisors. He understands that business better than just about anybody. We were kind of talking about what his modeling and deployment was going to be. We actually pulled out spreadsheets, and I actually went on Edward Jones's website and was trying to figure out what basis points they charge for what functionality. And it was an iterative process in order to try to figure out and help Jason really cement what their deployment was going to be. And I think what makes your deployment unique is how you're tying the investment management. Basically what they wanted to do is just say, hey, you know, we want a robust investment management lineup, and we want to utilize some functionality in the AIM portfolios, but we also want our own flair. So we want a model marketplace that reflects us and what they were getting at Edward Jones, so when they leave, they land here, and it's not just Edward Jones, but better. And could you talk a little bit about that deployment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, been very excited about the flexibility there with Advyzon, and the idea of having a I guess you could call it multiple different ways of managing money, but having it all in the same place. I don't have to log into different places to go to different outfits. You know, if I say, hey, this particular account, I want this one to be, I guess what they call APM, advisor as portfolio manager. You know, I just want to place my trades one at a time. Great, we could do that. Hey, maybe I have another type of client where I've got my own models that are just kind of my personal models, and I want to run those models and rebalance as I see fit. Great, we can do that through Quantum. And then you know, there's some advisors out there that are more hands-off. You know, they're not really into managing the money, and they kind of say, hey, I want to have something that's more delegated and done for me, for lack of a better term. And so, you know, with the Nucleus platform, we're able to offer that as well, and at a very, very, in my opinion, extremely competitive price. And as competitive as what we would have gotten from the large broker-dealers. And so having that, but most importantly, having it all in one central location, one login, one, you know, not having to have, hey, let me go, I need to go do my TAMP, cool, let me go log in over here. It's just, it's in theory, it's okay until you actually do it in practice and you kind of realize that it's inefficient, to say the least. And so that, I think, is just what's super exciting, is that we can come really darn close to replicating what we had at the broker-dealer.
So I think, just in closing here, the general theme is, if you want something done or built right, build it with Advyzon. I can't thank the panel anymore. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you for lending your wisdom, your knowledge, and your expertise to the broader Advyzon family. So please give a huge hand to our panel.